U.S. President Donald Trump addresses the 73rd United Nations General Assembly in New York on September 25, 2018. Spencer Platt, Getty Images. In a speech to the United Nations Tuesday, President Donald Trump said the United States will not be taken advantage of in trade agreements, a threat that comes as a deadline to sign a NAFTA deal with Canada fast approaches. Without directly mentioning the ongoing NAFTA negotiations with Canada, Mr. Trump doubled down on his "America First" approach, rejected globalism and demanded respect for U.S. sovereignty. The president's warning hangs over the fate of North American trade, with no NAFTA deal in sight ahead of the U.S.-imposed deadline of Sept. 30. "We will no longer tolerate such abuse. We will not allow our workers to be victimized, our companies to be cheated, and our wealth to be plundered and transferred," Mr. Trump told the UN in New York. Story continues below. Advertisement. America is governed by Americans. We reject the ideology of globalism, and we embrace the doctrine of patriotism. Even though Mr. Trump and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau are both at the UN this week, there are no plans for them to formally sit down and discuss NAFTA. Mr. Trudeau said there is a chance he could run into the president on the sidelines of the UN, but noted that they're both more focused on meeting with leaders they don't see as often. "We speak every few weeks. We see each other at a whole bunch of different events," Mr. Trudeau told the Council on Foreign Relations Tuesday morning. "I have a level of access and interaction that pretty much very few other countries have, and therefore actually blocking out time to sit down and meet is time that both of us perhaps more productively could use on people who we don't have as many opportunities to meet." Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer, who are both in New York with their leaders, also have no formal plans to discuss NAFTA. Speaking to the United Nations, U.S. President Donald Trump reiterated his hard line on trade and deficits. He said that abuse is heaped on America by what he calls unfair trade practices won't be tolerated anymore. Speaking to the Concordia Summit, a nonpartisan forum held alongside the UN General Assembly in New York Tuesday, Mr. Lighthizer warned that Canada is running out of time to join a revamped NAFTA with the United States and Mexico. If a three-way deal isn't reached soon, the United States will break up the world's largest free trade zone and instead pursue separate bilateral deals with Canada and Mexico, Mr. Lighthizer said during the rare public appearance. Story continues below. Advertisement. We're running out of time, Mr. Lighthizer said. Hopefully we'll end up with something with Canada. If not, we'll have to do it in a separate deal as soon afterwards as we can. We're not going to give up. They're a huge trading partner of the United States. The United States reached an agreement with Mexico to overhaul NAFTA last month and is now pushing Canada to sign on. Washington and Mexico City want to finalize the deal by November 30, before current Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto leaves office. Both the United States and Mexico have said that they will move forward without Canada if necessary. Mr. Lighthizer's comments, however, added some nuance. If Canada doesn't reach an agreement on NAFTA, he said, the United States still intends to negotiate a later deal. The U.S. Trade Representative named the Chapter 19 dispute resolution system, which Canada wants to preserve, and American access to Canada's protected dairy market as the major sticking points in a pact. There's still a fair amount of distance between us. There are very large issues. There are issues of dairy in Chapter 19, he said. We're sort of running out of time. Sources with knowledge of the talks have told the Globe and Mail that, in addition to these matters, Canada's demand for an exclusion from potential future auto tariffs, and U.S. demands for tougher pharmaceutical patent protections and increased duty-free online purchases for Canadian consumers, have not been resolved. Story continues below. Advertisement. Mr. Lighthizer also suggested that Canada and Mexico cannot expect swift relief on steel and aluminum tariffs, which the United States imposed on its NAFTA partners in June. He said that he originally hoped to reach some agreement on the tariffs as part of NAFTA talks, but now is focused on finishing NAFTA first before negotiating a separate deal on the tariffs. On steel and aluminum, we started off originally trying to have some kind of an overall agreement, he said. I think our view is that now we'll turn to that as the next stage, Mr. Lighthizer said. NAFTA would also be renamed the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Trade Deal, or USMC. Whether the United States could actually proceed with a separate bilateral deal with Mexico, absent Canada, is a matter of debate. Under U.S. trade rules, the Trump administration was given authority by Congress to negotiate a three-way deal. Congress could, however, choose to accept a two-way deal.